episode number 8 of the Colombian Soccer Show. Another victory, another time to celebrate. A day later, because it was Friday, right? It's Friday, it's a holiday in the US. There was a lot to celebrate Friday night, so we're coming to you live the day after. My name is Juan Pimiento. Thank you so much as always for joining us on this special edition, Saturday edition, the day after Colombia beat Ghana 1-0 in the round of 32 of the FIFA World Cup. And what a time it was. And from a soccer standpoint, it was a fascinating game because it was a different challenge for Colombia against Ghana. We figured that it was going to be tough. We figured that Ghana were going to be a difficult opponent to overcome. We even figured that the score was going to be narrow, right? In the hopes, of course, that Colombia were going to pull off the victory, which they did. It was 1-0. At the end of the day, Colombia ended up facing a very physical game. I think it's very telling that every game so far has presented its own challenge. Of course, they're different rivals, so it's only normal. But this one, I feel like, also showed something about Colombia that maybe we hadn't seen as much of in the previous games in the group stage, which was how can Colombia handle the physicality of a team like Ghana? And they did. And Colombia is a team that, again, there's no guarantee always that when they face physical matchups, that, of course, when you face a physical team, a very strong team, that can get into Colombia's head sometimes, right? But this time, Colombia were right there with Ghana from a physical standpoint, also from a mental standpoint. They held on, they fought through the tackles and the bumps and the falls and the tiredness. Some of the Colombian players showed more of the jelly legs because they were tired, right? And we'll talk about that in a minute. But a different challenge, but the same result. A 1-0 win for Colombia and on to the round of 16. So now Colombia have matched the threshold of the previous World Cup appearance in 2018, reaching the round of 16. Now let's see if they can actually break through and meet the standard that was set in 2014, of course, in that unforgettable World Cup in Brazil. Thank you again so much for joining us. Before we break this down, a quick reminder. If you're joining us live on Facebook, make sure to like our page, The Colombian Soccer Show. Make sure to comment as well on this stream right below. What did you think of the game? It's been a little over 18 hours, we'll put it that way. After the game, we all celebrated. I'm pretty sure all of you are dealing with either a hangover or sleep deprivation or one or both, basically, right now on a Saturday. But it's well deserved, of course. If you're in the US watching us, I hope you're enjoying Independence Day, July 4th. I hope you enjoyed yesterday as well, a day off from work, and that you're enjoying this weekend with a Colombia victory, with the relief that Colombia are through. So like our page. Let me know what you think, again, in the comments section right below on Facebook. Also on YouTube. As you're watching this episode, make sure to subscribe on YouTube to our channel. Make sure that you also comment as well and that you like our page so the stream and all the content from the Colombian Soccer Show can appear to anyone who's looking for English language Colombian soccer content in the YouTube sphere. So like our page, subscribe, and also over on Instagram and TikTok and X, make sure to follow us as well as the Colombian Soccer Show. Let's break it down. How did this happen? How did Colombia pull this off? First of all, I have to say, it's been awesome to watch the support, the sea of yellow at every single game. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just because it's the knockout stages, right? So the stakes are higher, of course. So the tension is a little bit more and the expectation is a little bit more present, right? But there was something about yesterday in Kansas City. We saw it before the game. Every city, the fans have turned out. They've gathered for the banderazo, right? For the pep rally, if you will, the day before. Also, they've gathered around the team hotel, chanting and supporting the players. The players have even come out of the hotels to say hello. We even saw James Rodriguez emotionally shaken by the support of the Colombian faithful who are present at the different cities. Kansas City was no different, but there was something about this game in particular, and again, it was probably the stakes that I felt like it brought me back to a time in 2014 when we just felt like it was home. The singing of the anthem was, to me, it was really emotional. It was really, really present. It really got to me. And that is something that Colombia get to enjoy and that Colombia get to ride as well. Because having the support of your crowd like this, as we've seen with Argentina and Mexico, for example, man, it brings you a long way. So Colombia are going to be riding that wave now into Vancouver as we face Switzerland in the round of 16 on Tuesday. That's the pregame. Now on the field, again, a very physical game. And we saw so many of the different features or the different consequences, if you will, of the game, even early on, because within 8 minutes, Colombia lost their striker. Now, one of the questions about the game heading into yesterday was who's going to play striker, right? Who's going to be the number 9? Was it going to be John Cordova? Was it going to be Luis Suarez? Lorenzo opted for John Cordova, and he only lasted, unfortunately, 8 minutes. I think he was a growing problem, and it took him out. We figured, okay, John Cordova can handle more of the physicality. Ghana has two very sizable, very tall, very strong center backs in Lucas and Opoku, and John Cordova would have been perfect for that, right? Luis Suarez comes in so early on, and Colombia have to burn a substitution window and a substitution itself in this change. Unfortunate, and I was having some doubts. I'm not gonna lie. How was gonna Luis Suarez handle that physicality? And I have to tell you, I know that Luis Diaz got the man of the match, but I think top three for me of the Colombian performers. I know he didn't score, and let me check the stats really quick because I don't know if Luis Suarez even had a shot on goal. He didn't. Has zero shots, but there's nothing here to complain about Luis Suarez because the way this guy fought for every single ball, for every single challenge was amazing to see. It was awesome to see the effort and to see how much he put into this game, knowing what he was facing, knowing what it was going to take from a physical standpoint. Luis Suarez was amazing in this game. I have to give him props because he was in there for 82 minutes. And again, he didn't see goal really. He had a couple of chances, he had a couple of looks, but no shot literally to even score against Ghana. But man, he fought, and I thought Suarez and Gustavo Puerta, who put in another amazing performance, and Puerta is really solidifying himself in this World Cup. I think to me he was the man of the match, but to me Suarez and Puerta really symbolized what it took for Colombia to win this game because it was the effort, it was the fight, it was the struggle for every ball, for every dribble, for every ball recovery. That's what Colombia needed to win this game, and they did it. And they did it masterfully. Puerta was amazing in this game. Luis Diaz, what can I say? The poor guy can't catch a break, right? I think this is his fourth goal disallowed in this World Cup. And I mean, honestly, he would have been up there fighting basically with the top scorers had it not been for all the offsides. But I saw a fresher Luis Diaz. I saw a Luis Diaz who definitely took advantage of the 6 days, right? To recover, to have more legs within him, and to actually be able to handle more of the physical aspect of this game. He ended up being subbed out very last minute, of course, when Hamilton Campas came in. But unlucky, unlucky. And he continues to be unlucky. I feel really bad for Luis Diaz because, again, he's trying, he's making the efforts, he's scoring the goals. They're just offsides, and VAR is calling them off, and we're all celebrating, and we're all disappointed once the VAR review comes in and it's offsides. Thankfully, this time the offsides wasn't by a toe. So at least we can say that. And that Colombia won. It always helps. But Luchito, it'll happen. He'll continue to get there. We'll see what happens. Now we're back to only 3 days rest when it comes to Colombia when they face Switzerland on Tuesday. So I'll be curious how much of a percentage of a physical stamina standpoint Luis Diaz will be able to be and to actually perform on when it comes to Switzerland on Tuesday. But we'll get to Switzerland on Tuesday when we bring you the preview, of course, here on Facebook and on YouTube. Luis Diaz was great. Colombia came out basically with the same setup, right? Starting off, the substitution in the 8th minute didn't change anything from a tactical standpoint. The first half, I think, was more the first half that we expected, and it was a lot of the first halves that Colombia have had. The difference was, and I talked about this every single game so far, that the pending assignment for Colombia was the finishing, and it came. It came within 17 minutes with that John Arias goal, and boy, what a relief! What a relief! And you can tell once Colombia scored the goal how much of a more loose and in control team they looked on possession, because that's when Ghana again resorted to the low block. Colombia had to go back to dominating possession, and it just felt like they were a loser. Again, it's not like they produced in quantity per se, but the chances had more quality to it. They were closer to goal. Colombia were close to scoring the second goal on multiple occasions in this game. So it wasn't, again, as dominant and as overwhelming for Ghana. And Colombia, I felt like, could have had the second goal, and it would have been nicer to have the second goal, of course, heading into the halftime break. But I think Colombia did a good job, a solid job on offense. And I have to say, though, speaking of fitness, James, boy, and we found out after the fact, right, that James had been dealing, according to the federation, with, I think it's flu-like symptoms or a cold. He was ill basically coming into this game, so you could tell because everybody was on point except for James. James just looked sluggish again. He looked like he didn't have the clarity. His passes were not connecting, especially Colombia were trying to do a lot of switches, right? Big switches from one end to the other, trying to beat Ghana into forming their low block, and it wasn't happening for James. And James just looked off in that first half, so much so that he ended up sitting out the second half entirely. He was taken out at halftime in favor of Richard Rios, but again, it turns out because he was ill. So the question is, if he was ill, why even play him? But that's the weight that James carries, right, on this team. And for Lorenzo to just, you play him. And James's career for Colombia has been marked in great part by coaches who play him always, regardless if he's injured, if he's sick, if he hasn't played, if he's out of form. James is there, always. Luckily, again, Colombia won, because I feel like this would have been a point of debate after a loss. James should have played. If he was sick, why put him on the field? They put him on the field again, wasn't effective at all. But at least, again, Lorenzo, just like it happened against Portugal, had the wherewithal to take him out in favor of something else. Now, it was surprising then when the substitution, to me at least, was Richard Rios, because it meant a change tactically from a 4-3-1-2 to a 4-3-3, right? John Arias, the goal scorer, and what a game he had as well. He was very active in the first half, and I'm so happy for John Arias to get his goal, because I've talked about heading into the World Cup, now during the World Cup, how much John Arias seems to be on his game. And back to the John Arias that earned him that move to Wolverhampton from the Brazilian league. For him to cap that off with the goal was special to see. I was very happy for him, very happy for that accomplishment, right? In the second half, he was taking off his central support role into back to being a winger, which is what we saw more often during qualifying and in Copa America. And it took him out of the game, I think, in a lot of ways, because he was back to being more of a defensive support. And I think it helped because Ghana were trying to get in by Colombia, as the Congo did, as Portugal did, as Uzbekistan did also, past the wingers, right? Or the fullbacks, past Munoz, past Mojica. Mojica had a much better performance in this game. Munoz also was on his game, and luckily it didn't happen, and the extra support, I think, helped in that regard. Ghana were able to penetrate more through the middle, because one of the big points, I think, to take away from this game in terms of fitness is Jefferson Lerma. I'm worried about Lerma because I think he looks sluggish as well. He looks slower. He was getting beat through the middle by Jirenki, by Sibo, who ended up getting taken out. But I felt like, whereas in the group stage, Colombia were suffering more from attacks coming from the wings, Ghana were able to get through Colombia through the center lanes in this game. And Lerma he looked off. And Lerma, we know that he struggles at times because he gets left alone a lot, right? Simply because Richard Rios defensively is a liability. He was again in this game. He really was. And on offense, he didn't contribute much. So to me, Richard Rios, a total miss by Lorenzo putting him into this game because of his performance, but defensively in particular. And Puerta can only do so much. And so to me, that's a point of concern. And we'll talk about that again on Tuesday because that's going to be a huge key and a huge challenge for Colombia. If Lerma is also struggling fitness wise on Tuesday against Switzerland, Switzerland through the middle are dangerous. So we'll break that down, of course, on Tuesday. But worried about Lerma, worried about Rios. He can't catch it, man. He can't do it on defense. On offense, I think he got a shot in late in the game. That was it. He didn't really contribute much. So the tactical change, I think, actually worked against Colombia, amazingly enough, the 4-3-3. Quintero comes into the game later on for John Arias. Quintero played, 17 minutes in this game? And man, what a difference. My God, Quintero's the Quintero that we know and love. What a baller. What a player. What a left foot, man. Incredible stuff. In 17 minutes, he was able to create so much more than James amidst his illness, than John Arias, than Rios. He came in and he was dealing, man. It was beautiful to see the passing, the vision, the precision, the movement through the center, on the right. Boy, man, Quintero was a beauty to watch in this game. And again, it makes you wonder, why does Lorenzo always hold him out for so long, knowing that this guy can contribute so much? Now, we do have to say, Quintero is not the first time he's coming to this World Cup. The previous times, hit or miss, right? He hasn't been able to really create and influence the game as much. But in this one, man, he was balling. He was balling. So Quintero, I think, plays a humongous role. He's like the sixth man on a basketball team, I really feel like, because with James and his fitness, and if he continues to be an issue now from a health standpoint into Switzerland, then Quintero, I mean, I would make an argument for him to start, right? Or at least to split halves, like it happened in this game, or not so much split halves, but again, for him to play more. And I pleaded for Quintero to play more all along. I know a lot of you have as well. So I really think that this is a chance for Quintero to feature more and more, and for really for Lorenzo to trust him finally, because it's been sad to watch how underutilized Juanfer Quintero has been during the Lorenzo era. He comes into the game in Colombia again. The second half, that's when you really saw more of the physical battle. And Ghana were able to get more or closer to goal. But I'm going to actually pull up the stat because it's pretty remarkable that for a game that was so physical, right? And for a Ghana team that I felt like was able to push their lines, they were able to actually get closer to goal a little bit. If you look at the stats, this is very telling because despite all those challenges, look at this. No chances for Ghana in this game. Zero. It was remarkable because Colombia won the physical battle to the point of limiting Ghana to no shots on goal. And that to me goes to the last point that I want to make, which is the defense. If Lerma was struggling, thankfully, Davinson Sanchez and John Lukumi were masterful in this game. And they've been throughout the World Cup. And they've improved all along, man. I feel like Colombia can rest easy because Sanchez is at top level. Lucumi is at top level. Camilo Vargas has been useful and key, attentive when required. He wasn't required in this game, but that triangle, right? The two center backs and the goalkeeper, and you throw in the two fullbacks who were much better defensively, as I mentioned before. Munoz was better. Mojica was so much better too. And he's been the one who struggled the most defensively. All four and the goalkeeper, great in this game. Solid. And that to me in the second half, that's what saved the game for Colombia because again, Ghana were getting closer. They were creeping in, right? They were winning more battles. They were occupying more in the center lanes. They had numbers in the middle of the pitch. And it didn't matter. It didn't produce anything. So to me, the defense, really key. And that's going to be great when it comes to knockout stages because if they keep this up, Colombia can go a long way. I want to take a little bit of time also to just look ahead, right? Because we're all looking at brackets, we're all looking at the other games, and we can't help it but look at what happened with Switzerland, who won against Algeria Thursday night. You look at Argentina, and boy, what was that a roller coaster or what against Cape Verde? And at least on this corner of the bracket, I think if anything, this is proof of two things. Number one, and I'll say it one more time, how important it was for Colombia to get first place. Because look at what we have now. We have, I think, a clear path. Point number two, not just to a quarterfinal, but to a semifinal. Because Argentina were exposed against Cape Verde. And with Argentina, you know how it is, right? When it comes to Colombia, it's up here. But if Colombia can really study the tape and Colombia can convince themselves, of course, given that we beat Switzerland on Tuesday and that Argentina beat Egypt also, that if we go into a rematch back in Kansas City against Argentina next Saturday, Colombia can win that game. I think Colombia can actually win that game with a certain degree of comfort. I think it could be something similar to what happened against Ghana. Of course, Ghana has no Messi and no Lautaro and none of those big names. But Colombia, again, have a really good path into a potential Final Four in this World Cup. And really, if you look at the entire field, I think the only team that scares me is France. I think if Colombia continue to play at this level, and especially if they continue to play emotionally, with the maturity and the personality that they've showed so far, I think Colombia have a good chance to actually contend for this World Cup. And when have we said that? Maybe 2014. But this is, I think, a historic opportunity for Colombia to get into the elite and to actually compete to win a World Cup. Looking ahead, yeah. And again, we have to win the games coming up. Switzerland on Tuesday and then on. But if you look at the lay of the land, except for France, after beating Ghana the way we did, with physicality, with personality, battle for battle, Colombia can actually contend and win a World Cup. Let me know what you think in the comments. And with that, we'll wrap this up, of course. I want to remind you as well that you can communicate with us via email. As well, if you have any questions, any comments, of course, let us know via email. Right there below is the address for you to also participate that way. You can also participate, as always, on social media. One more time, like us on Facebook, follow us and subscribe on YouTube, like our pages, like our content, follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, on X for more content. Leading up to the big game against Switzerland, we're going to have a little history on Instagram and TikTok because we'll talk about the previous matchup that Colombia faced against Switzerland back in '94, also on U.S. soil, because it's not the first time that we faced the Swiss in a World Cup. That one was a win. Different circumstances, but we'll preview the matchup in that way as well. And the next time we see you, of course, speaking of previews, will be Tuesday. Early Tuesday, we'll have a video for you on Facebook and on YouTube, previewing the round of 16 for Colombia to face Switzerland in Vancouver. I'm already excited. I know we're going to be super hyped, of course, come Tuesday. So join us, like our pages, subscribe, join the conversation because Colombia, I think, are well on their way to a memorable World Cup. So join me. Let's take this ride together as Colombia move on in the World Cup. And on that note, I thank you again so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.